Hey, this is Jean-Marc talking about how B2C professionals like financial advisors should do LinkedIn lead generation now. Well, while LinkedIn lead generation is typically not good for businesses that sell to regular people or consumers, there is an exception. There is also a specific way to reach these people in order to reach the best sales lead possible in the best way possible. Now, we're going to be talking about ABM, account based marketing. But what is it? Account based marketing, at its simplest form, is just targeting people by the companies that they're affiliated with. In this instance, you're saying, hey, this kind of employee at this kind of company is the best fit for my business. I find this works for financial focused professionals, and they seem to have good success with it. But if you're in a field where you feel that a specific kind of person at a specific kind of company is your best lead, then you can use this for yourself. Now, you might ask, why would you do ABM, which is account based marketing, for B2C, which is business to consumer type of businesses? These are your more, what people think of as your traditional business. Think your hamburger stand or think of your gym. These are business to consumer. So they're going out into the wider population saying, hey, you can be our customer. Why would you want to do this sort of account based marketing? If you'll forgive me, that's my alarm. But why would you want to do that for B2C? Well, first, you can choose to get very specific. It's actually a lot easier because if you think about it, when it comes to reaching the population, how big of an obstacle is that? How large is that? Think of all the sort of marketing mumbo jumbo you can get lost in. You can choose to do advertising on television. I mean, you could do radio ads, billboards, Instagram, yada, yada. You can keep going with so many choices. But when it comes to using ABM, you can get very specific and actually target people that would care about your stuff. But there are a few things that I would recommend that you do. So here are my top recommendations for using account based marketing for B2C professionals. Really, three tips. First is use past and current customers as references. Not saying you're going to ask them to supply all of your customers, but use them as people that you refer back to. Also, stay local if possible. And lastly, keep your exchanges conversational. So let's talk a bit more about each of those. Now, if you're doing ABM for the B2C markets as an individual service professional, then it helps that you have a recognized track record with a certain type of person that works at a certain type of company. Now, it will help you get through a lot of the resistance that people hear when engaging with a new potential salesperson. And that's what you are, because if you are in business, you are a salesperson. Make no mistake. When they see you approaching, a lot of people talk about salesiness and they're a little bit concerned with that. Guarantee you. You own a business and you approach somebody, they're seen as a salesperson. Better to just accept that. Now, your people, when you approach them, they're going to have your three main responses. We see this all the time with anything new, especially with new people that could potentially sell us. There is the flight response, the fight response, and the freeze response. Flight, what does that look like? Well, the person may not respond to your message, you just kind of get out of town. Fight is that person that gets really upset. People get very upset. Hey, how dare you sell me anything ever in this economy? What's your problem? Or freeze, the person may just maybe they talk to you for one message, maybe they say, hey, thanks, maybe they keep it vague, but they essentially just don't do anything further. Now, these are average responses to any kind of stranger, which makes sense, but we're trying to go for better than average here. So what you can do, a thing you can start doing is that if you are able, obviously, first off, if you're able to get someone at a specific company to refer you people, do that. That's great. That's very helpful. Referrals are still going to be the most valuable way to get leads, even in the digital age, even with everything else, regardless of your business. A referral is gold. It is money in your pocket. It is trust that you don't have to spend all your time earning. Excuse me, but if you have this person that you've done work for at a specific type of company, and it makes sense to work with people in this company, or it makes sense to work with this similar type of role, what you can also do is make mention of this person. You can just ask their permission. Hey, I just want to know if it's okay. I just want to mention you here or there. Is that okay to go ahead? I don't want you to hear anything odd that I'm, spreading your name around town. I just want to make sure that's okay. And typically, folks are cool with that as long as you're doing it in a cool way. So that's one way to do it. But another way is if you don't have any customers rather at company X, for example, that you want to work with, you can always approach people at company X that are in your LinkedIn connections. So going through your LinkedIn connections and sending them the pitch message directed at current connections. I actually mention it on the post, and you can find it in that big lead generation master list for all those templates that I created on the site. Look for that, but you can find it on the post. It is in the hyperlink that says I recommend here. Now, stay local. Let's talk about this tip. Stay local. Why? Because even though we have a lot of technology, the assumption you often find that people don't mention is that they expect to work with their high trust consultant, personal advisor in person. So it helps to have a local presence. It's great to be able to refer to things that locals talk about. So here's an example that I've seen other successful advisors use. They will mention local landmarks as a way to build familiarity. They'll say, hey, we've helped Jack or Jane Doe at company X, which is your company. Looks like you guys are on our side of town. We're just off County Road 55. The old sawmill. Are you familiar? And that allows you to build some kind of familiarity with these folks. Because any way we can bridge this gap between us being a total stranger and them being a total stranger, let's go ahead and bridge that gap. And let's talk about our last bit, which is keeping it conversational. People, I find, have a bit of a problem with this because once they get into a business mindset, they think they have to use terms like revenue and talk about ROI and get very fancy and talk about the way it's going to increase their percentage of yada 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 BS. Keeping it conversational is going to help your prospect from being scared off and allows them to take the next step. The kind of mindset that you want to take is that you'd rather be a resource for these folks. You might have heard it elsewhere, try not to sell hard. My recommendation and what I've seen work for advisors, people that manage loads and loads of money for their companies, is they take a conversational tone. And I have, there's a marker, I have a few of those examples in the post. You see I have 4 messages listed taken from actual examples of very successful financial advisors, and they'll show you the ropes on the sort of things you want to say. Sometimes some of their messages appall me because they don't even end with a question, but what's awesome is that they are mimicking this natural language. So they're keeping it conversational. So that is the last tip I have for you in this post I've been talking about, which is how B2C professionals like financial advisors should do LinkedIn lead generation now. This has been Jean-Marc. Take it easy. Peace.